good evening, and welcome to Waterhouse Vibes. Another Sunday, and I'm pretty much sure those of you who are listening must be asking yourself, why is it that these guys never start the thing on time? Well, you know it go. We are novice when it comes to the technology. That's one thing. Second thing, time. Jamaican time. We have a Jamaican time and American time. But none of that is really, it can be used as an excuse. We need to get our act together. You understand? And I hope that with you, the listeners, you will hold us to that. When we say 4 o'clock, it's 4 o'clock. No reason, because you take your time out to come listen to us, and you deserve that sort of respect. My name is Mike Nita, your host, and along with me we have John Arton, Herb Nelson, and Les Crawford. Unfortunately, Brother Patrick couldn't be with us this evening because there's some family emergency. I tell you, last week discussion I think it was a good discussion. We touched on a number of areas which I think ought to be a concern to the Jamaican people. And today, we're going to continue that, because now we're getting into the election period, and it's a time that we usually use to look at the political parties and the stories that them tell us and everything. Because the bottom line, these guys, these men and women, they want to lead us. They want power to lead us. That's what they want. And some of us are so foolish to the game that we give them our power, and then later on we complain that why not do this and that. And you are the power to decide if you want him or him to go in the House of Parliament. And so we never check it that way. You get into the House of Parliament and them do them own thing. And here I'm talking about the politicians. They do their own thing and they support them friends in high and low places. And what you have now is literally, I would say, when I look at the situation in Jamaica right now, I think the challenge we face, among many others, since independence, the challenge we face just now is the capturing of the state by certain elements. You look at the government, those in parliament right now, both sides of the party, you see elements who, them are feed off of the state. When just get into office, and there's a particular individual who is into the unalive business, putting people underground. And now, as one brother said to me, the man even have Christmas tree on top of his house, light up like 4th of July. People, certain elements in Jamaica really are feed off of the state. They capture the state and feed the corruption. But nobody want to call it state capture. They call it corruption, when it's really the state them capture, these elements. You know them, I know them, everybody in Jamaica know them. It's just through the fear and the balance of force, while these elements don't get confronted just yet. It's okay to the small man, roll the small man, send the small man a prison, while you have some men from uptown, Syrian, Lebanese, Chinese, and some Jamaican black men who sell them soul to the devil. They just come together and decide to rip off the state. Rip off the state. Big amount of money. The end result is what you see happening down in Kingston Public Hospital. Lack of, proper medical supplies to save the youths them life. Understaffed, under-resourced hospital. And the list go on and on and on. Today we want to take you on a journey. And I want to start this journey by sharing with you a clip. Okay? I want to share with you a clip. A clip that I want to share with you that clip that sort of remind us of what it is, what is happening in Jamaica. Take a look at this.
Jamaica's political history isn't just about leadership and governance. It's also filled with shocking scandals, backroom deals, and corruption across the nation. From misused funds
Turn up the sound, Mike.
to these scandals expose deep flaws in accountability and governance. Zinc scandal, 1989. The JLP imported 400 million.
We can't hear it properly, Mikey.
Of Hurricane Gilbert. But when the PM
Volume is too low.
The carefully prepared list was ignored. The zinc was distributed corruptly, primarily to political supporters. Farm Work Program Scandal, 1990. J.A.G. Smith was the JLP Minister of Labour and Public Service. The scandal involved Smith diverting money from farm workers for his personal gain. He was charged in February 1990 and convicted to 5 years in jail. Shell Waiver Scandal, 1991. Minister of Mining and Energy, Horace Clarke, resigned over a scandal involving a waiver of $29.5 million in duties that Shell Company West Indies should have paid to the government on imported gasoline. Furniture Scandal, 1991. Large sums were spent on furniture after the PNP took office in 1989. Ben Clare of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said he signed the invoices without looking at them. In February 1991, the DPP issued arrest warrants for Robert Hill, the inventory clerk at Parliament, and businessman Canute Sadler. That was, however, only the tip of the iceberg of the furniture scandal.
The volume, we can't hear it. The volume is too low.
During the financial crisis of the 1990s, the financial sector adjustment company FinSac was established in 1997 to stabilize the banking sector. However, its policies led to the collapse of many businesses and financial institutions, with allegations of favoritism and mismanagement. Operation Pride Scandal, 2002. A housing initiative aimed at providing affordable homes for low-income Jamaicans. Allegations of mismanagement, corruption, and incomplete projects marred it. Over $8 billion was involved. Dr. Carl Blythe resigned as Minister of Water and Housing following a report from a 4-member commission that suggested he acted improperly as minister responsible for the Operation Pride program. Trafigura Bahia Scandal, 2006. Information Minister Colin Campbell was forced to resign from the cabinet and as General Secretary of the People's National Party in October 2006. The resignation came about a week after opposition leader Bruce Golding revealed that Trafigura Bahia, a Dutch company with business arrangements with the government, made a $31 million transaction to an account bearing Campbell's signature. The money was for the PNP. Sandals White House Scandal, 2006 to 2011. Cost overruns, delays, and allegations of corruption plagued the construction of the Sandals White House Hotel. Initially budgeted at $30 million US, The project ballooned to over 120 million US dollars. The scandal highlighted issues with government oversight and accountability in public-private partnerships. Cuban light bulb scandal, 2007. A program to distribute energy-saving light bulbs from Cuba was criticized for alleged political favoritism and irregularities in procurement. As a result, Kearns Spencer resigned as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Science and Technology. The PNP spent over $276.5 million to distribute 4 million free light bulbs donated by the Cuban government. Spencer was charged, but the court freed him and his co-accused Colleen Wright. Manat, Phelps and Phillips scandal, 2010. State Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Dr. Ronald Robinson resigned amid the Manat, Phelps and Phillips affair related to Christopher Judas Koch's extradition. He apologized for his role in the scandal. The government, led by Prime Minister Bruce Golding, initially resisted extraditing Judas, a notorious gang leader, to the United States. National Works Agency scandal, 2011. Transport and Works. Minister Mike Henry resigned due to concerns over the National Works Agency's NWA project management. Henry's resignation followed revelations that more than $60 million was spent on furniture for the NWA's offices and a controversial $102 million refurbishing project. Outermany scandal, 2014. The National Housing Trust, NHT, a government agency, purchased the failing Outermany tourist attraction for over 180 million Jamaican dollars, raising questions about misuse of public funds and lack of transparency. The scandal sparked public outrage and calls for greater accountability in using NHT funds for housing development. Petrojam scandal, 2018. Science, Energy and Technology. Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley resigned following scandals at state-run entities Petrojam and National Energy Solutions Limited, which are under his portfolio. The Petrojam scandal caused several heads to roll, including Wheatley's. This scandal was part of a series of corruption allegations involving entities under his ministry's portfolio. Education Ministry scandal, 2019. Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Ruel Reid was forced to resign over allegations of corruption and misuse of public funds involving institutions tied to his ministry. Reid and the then president of the Caribbean Maritime University, Professor Fritz Pinnock, were arrested and charged. The matter is still before the court. Jamaica has an integrity commission to promote integrity in public service, strengthen anti-corruption measures, detect misconduct, investigate allegations using modern methods, ensuring accountability within the nation's governance framework. If you haven't already done so, please like this video and subscribe.
Yes, gentlemen. And while you see that, I want to show you also something else. I want to show you something. Listen to this. This is I want you to listen to this. Not just listen, but
George Williams has described as an insult the Supreme Court's award of $120 million to compensate for the 50 years he spent in custody without a trial. His niece says the ruling has failed to deliver real justice. Details in this report.
120 million in damages. That's the amount the Supreme Court has ordered the government to pay George Williams, a mentally ill man who spent 50 years in custody without a trial. The government had previously offered 6 million, an amount his family rejected. Speaking on Power 106's Morning Agenda, Mr. Williams' niece and primary caregiver Pamela Green expressed frustration with the Supreme Court's ruling. She acknowledged that while there has been some measure of justice, she insists that the 120 million awarded is not enough.
I don't think it is enough, but he might not live long enough for us to fight the battle for more. So, we'll just work with the offer that they gave us. Because we know the court system is, sometimes it's drawn out, so it will take forever.
When asked about George's condition, Miss Green spoke with care about the lasting impact of his years in custody and his life now outside of prison.
You will take his bath, like several baths throughout the day. Sometimes we have to say, George, you don't need to bathe so many times. He just love water. Every time he bathe, he will wash his clothes. So, he's used to that, through the prison system.
Gentlemen, there is something fundamental wrong with the present construction of Jamaica. Something fundamentally wrong. When you have, so many scandals, so much robbery, and here one man, poor black man, have to spend 50 years in prison. Where is the justice for black people in Jamaica? That has always been the problem and the challenge that we face in Jamaica. Justice for black people in Jamaica. And I want to open the discussion now so the listeners them can comment, put your comment into the chat and what have you, and we're going to respond to them. So we want to get everybody involved in this discussion around this question. Where is the justice for black people in Jamaica? That was something colonialism promised us, and we're still waiting. All we see is a small group of individuals capture the state and they make them friends get rich while the poor suffer. What say you, gentlemen? Am I wrong in saying that you have elements in Jamaica who capture the state for them sole purpose and enriching themselves? Last,
Well, I could say yes to that in that from the time of the colonialists, you have a certain class of people who run the system to benefit themselves. I mean, since independence, that structure, that political structure, and that economic structure that ensure that those people are the people from that particular class who have always benefited most from the country. All of those systems are still in place. So what has happened is that we have had very little change in terms of the economic and the political structure. So the people who are running the system now still have the kind of power to run the system on their behalf. And so that's what's been happening.
John, what's your take, John?
I don't believe that speaking the truth, because black man benefit off of it too. Even though it's true that the majority of people who suffer are black at the bottom of society, many of those in the ruling party are black too. So it's not entirely geared to race, even though in Jamaica, if the truth be told, the majority of poverty is among the lower class, low income people who are black. So the question that I asked myself when I read the topic was to remember what I learned when I went to university. I graduated from university in 1974 with a degree in politics and economics. While I was in university, I was taught that there were certain countries that got independence at the same time as Jamaica, and one of them was Singapore. So what I did early this morning was to use my AI for the first time to ask my AI, please compare the economic and political development between Jamaica and Singapore since 1962 to the present day. And my AI gave me a very good answer. I would like to read it, even though it's not a short answer, but it covers all the things that make these two countries different. The trajectories of Jamaica and Singapore since independence offer a powerful contrast in economic and political development. Despite gaining independence in the same year, the two nations have followed divergent paths due to differences in leadership, governance, policy choices, geographic positioning, and historical circumstances. So when I look at these differences, the one that is missing the most, let me just scroll down, is what is referred to as geographic positioning and historical circumstances. It don't develop those 2 points. ChatGPT don't develop those points.
But we know what those are.
Well, I'm going to make them clear so that people don't have to guess.
Yeah, because we know you want to talk about slavery.
Well, slavery is one.
Yeah.
But see, independence was long after slavery.
Yeah.
And the other one that it don't talk about when it say historical and geographic, historical is definitely slavery, but geographic is we are in a totally different hemisphere from Singapore. Singapore is under the hemisphere of China, whereas Jamaica is under the hemisphere of the United States. Those are the two big differences that are not explained in any detail in this summary. But let me tell you what else it says. Jamaica's system is parliamentary democracy, and it talk about constitutional monarchy. Stability, it is generally a stable system, regular election, and relatively peaceful transfer of power. Governance, marked by issues such as corruption. It used the word clientelism, which is another word for corruption. In the olden days, I used to say clientelism when the political party pay off people to vote for them. And also political violence. And it's especially in the 70s and 80s. So we have regular violence now, but back in those days, it was mainly harnessed around election. Key periods: 70s, polarization under Prime Minister Manley, socialists, and Edward Seaga, who have two different orientations, sometimes accompanied by violence. Well, we know it never sometimes, it was historically one of the worst periods of political violence in Jamaica. In the 90s to the present, political modernization and reform efforts, though governance issues persist. In Singapore, they describe the system as a parliamentary republic with a dominant party system, the People's Action Party in power since 1959. Extremely stable politically, but with limited political pluralism and restrictions on press freedom, assembly, and opposition parties. Governance highly efficient with strong rule of law and low corruption. Key features in Singapore: authoritarian governance model with technocratic leadership under founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Government has focused on meritocracy, economic planning, and public sector excellence. Okay, what I was struck by is the figures in terms of economic development. So first big figure is the GDP. Nominal GDP is 17 billion for Jamaica. Now, what they've done here is to convert GDP to US dollars, whereas Singapore have 50 billion GDP. GDP per capita. Jamaica GDP per capita in 2024 was $5,600 per person.
John, we are not seeing your face.
No, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
$5,600 in Jamaica per person, whereas in Singapore, the per capita GDP is $85,000, one of the highest in the world. Main sectors. In Jamaica, the main sectors are tourism, meaning the sectors contributing the most to GDP over the independence period. Tourism, remittances, bauxite, aluminum. Whereas in Singapore, finance, tech, technology, trade, logistics, biotech. Human Development Index. The difference in Jamaica, the Human Development Index is considered high, 0.74. In Singapore, it's even higher, 0.94. In terms of ease of doing business, Jamaica had a 70 to 80 in the 70s and 80s, historically, the ease to doing business. And Singapore is ranked second globally. It's regarded as one of the Asian. I think all of us might remember the term Asian tiger. Singapore is considered an Asian tiger. All right. What I look for as well is the human and social development. The life expectancy in Jamaica is 75 years. In Singapore is 84 years, almost 10 years old longer. The literacy rate in Jamaica is 88 to 90%. In Singapore, it has been above 97%. The crime rate is considered high in Jamaica. They don't give a number. Notably, violent crime. In Singapore, very low. Education system, under-resourced. Public schools, for the most part, migration of talent. Teachers are leaving, like the nurses and the hospitals. We can easily add the health system to this figure. Whereas in Singapore, it's a world-class education, highly integrated towards economic needs. Jamaica continued to face high levels of youth unemployment and violence, youth unemployment, violent crime, particularly gang-related, immigration is high among skilled workers, meaning people leaving to look job in abroad. Singapore invested heavily in human capital, created an educated and highly skilled workforce, closely aligned with labor market demands. So, global integration and foreign policy in Jamaica is focused on regional cooperation, CARICOM, tourism, diaspora, vulnerable to external shocks, in particular natural disasters, global downturns, COVID-19. Singapore, on the other hand, actively involved in ASEAN, that's the trade agreement between the different Asian countries, the WTO, and has signed many free trade agreements, maintains a neutral but strategic foreign policy, key player in global trade and diplomacy. So some of the big differences is the political model, which is democratic, but often clientelistic, which we already defined what that means. Singapore, authoritarian leaning, but heavily technocratic. Growth rate over the period is relatively modest in Jamaica, and in Singapore, high and sustained. Corruption, moderate to high in Jamaica. In Singapore, very low. The rule of law is weakened by crime and slow justice system. The case you gave a while ago of a man not being brought to trial for 50 years is a good case in point. In Singapore, it's strong and it's consistent, relatively speaking. Standard of living in Jamaica keeps the country at best middle income. In Singapore, we have a high income country, high by world standards. So, in conclusion, despite starting at similar points in 1962, Singapore has emerged as one of the world's wealthiest and best governed nations due to its strategic planning, authoritarian efficiency, and economic openness. Jamaica, though a functioning democracy, has struggled with governance, crime, debt, and economic stagnation. Their contrasting outcomes illustrate the critical importance of leadership, institutional quality, and policy coherence in national development. Say no more. Those are that I am prepared to email this out if if Herbie can tell me how to do it, because I tried to print it, it's a long, it's elongated, like, because when it provides the data, it's just the way it comes up. That's my comments. And if we took notes, you will see some of the differences coming out there. The most important one in my mind, the two most important, is the authoritarianism in Singapore versus quote-unquote democracy in Jamaica. And secondly, the clientelism, which don't exist in Singapore. And thirdly, the geographic positioning of the two countries, as well as the historical circumstances. And I say that I'm not as strong on the historical circumstance, because slavery abolished long before 1962, even though we're under the colonial, for the same country that make us slaves is the same country that abolished, that slavery was abolishing, and we're under the colonial system of that country. So they, just like a lot of other countries, ensure that black stay back, brown hang around, white you're all right.
Any question, feedback? Herb?
Well, John has laid out a long, what I call laundry list of fixations that's needed, and for us to understand what's going on. But another organization, John, that has laid out specifics has been Transparency International. And every year that rating comes out and Jamaica comes up short, just that much short. I think their score is like 44 or something like that. And that score keeps us down there with the rest of corrupt countries, right? What Transparency International has highlighted for us is that we have weak parliamentary oversight and executive dominance. Now, when it says executive dominance, what does that tell us?
The cabinet.
Government control everything.
There you go, the prime minister. They're dominating the government, and they're so corrupt they can't police themselves, because the prime minister cannot point a finger at any cabinet minister or member of the JLP government.
But Herb, hold on a minute, brother. Is this just a GLP government issue?
It is, because they're the ones with overwhelming numbers in parliament.
Yeah, but the problem that John highlight,
Yeah,
go way back, and it's I would say the problem and the challenge, is should be of concern of the PNP and the JLP,
well the
and
PNP,
a distinction between them.
okay, the opposition is also a member of the government,
Okay.
right? It's all inclusive. And you hear Mark Golan speaking up, but his voice is like a whisper in the dark, because so the Speaker of the House, the head of the executive, and even in the judiciary, we see the DPP been there about 18 years, and she controls the prosecutions. Forget about the IC prosecutor. The DPP has power over her. So if the DPP thought she was coming up short, she had the power to override her and prosecute people. But the fact that the Transparency International is highlighting Parliament and a lack of independence I said a while back that you cannot have the executive sitting in parliament with the legislature, because the legislative body is just like what we see here with Trump and the Congress. Anytime you give up your power to the executive, then the executive can then cram all kinds of laws, all kind of budgets, do whatever the hell they want to do. And right now, it's like a fire sale in the U.S. To give you an example, we have the same fire sale happening down there in Jamaica, because it's only civil society groups like JAMP, um, and the NIA, who represents Transparency International, that are pointing out the real issues with government: lack of political finance regulation, right? If we had robust laws that spelled out that these government ministers, regardless of party, could not participate in money laundering, and clearly monitored their accounts, looking for signs of laundering, we could cut down on a whole lot of this, you know, backdoor deals that are going on. Corruption risks with the police and customs. Customs control what comes into the country as well as what goes out. Right? The police themselves, who have full knowledge of a lot of the chicanery that's going on, their hands are tied, because we don't have our local Colombo or local Sherlock Holmes that's really investigating, putting one on one together and coming up with the level. We don't have that kind of stuff, right? The police hands are tied, and they're tied. The police has been politicized, right? So has the military been politicized. They just follow along, follow orders, right? We have inadequate asset declarations beyond the prime minister, right? We have a lot of people in local government.
Herb, can you speak in the mic? Speak up to the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in local government, as well as other the opposition, that should have declarations to their leadership, that the leadership should be required to screen and to ensure it meets the proper standards required by the Integrity Commission. But if it's like the leadership in the parties don't want to see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, no, I can't say that of the PNP, because he's taking action to remove people when they come up short. But the government, like I say, with 40 odd ministers in parliament, they should be rotating those MPs in the cabinet, rotate them out to give the younger set a chance at governance, and to see if they can break up the corruption. Right. Now, I touch on judicial independence and transparency shortcomings. Throughout the entire Caribbean, we see there's a problem with this. And Jamaica leads that problem area, hands down, right? Because we saw what happened when an attorney challenged the system by asking the judiciary to ensure that administratively the Minister of Foreign Trade and Foreign Affairs would be charged based on her shortcomings in reporting and her shortcomings in declaring her assets. And all they did was just, it's like the blue wall of silence. They joined hands and they covered each other. So we have the Jamaican people who are saying to themselves, oh, this is normal. We have to accept it. We can't do anything about it. But the irony is, if you have police officers who are sworn, who are in specialized unit, whether it be CTU or MOCA or whatever, investigative agency they belong to. We need some heroes in those agencies to stand up for justice and to say exactly what's happening to the people of Jamaica and let the people decide this election who is corrupt and who is not. Now, I'm not just talking about one party, because they have knowledge of what the various ministers are doing, or local government council and mayors are doing. And they need to come out. I've always said that the one thing here in the US that can keep Trump and other people honest are leaks. When you have leaks,
Whistleblowers.
whistleblowers, and the truth comes out, and Jamaica has whistleblower laws. But it just seemed like there's a yellow streak down the backs of these people in a position to take action. They go along to get along, and they keep their mouth shut for fear of what? You're going to lose your job? No, I think you have to go through a public service review for them to take your rank and your pension and all that other stuff. And that review would bring all the shortcomings to light. I think it's time that people in those organizations who are sworn to protect and serve form some types of coalition that will be about truth and justice. And the bottom line to this whole thing is, if you really want to resolve a lot of stuff, let's have that truth commission we spoke about before, just like what the South Africans did. Right? It may be a temporary fix, or it could lead to people saying, okay, we just hit the reset button and we're going to start all over again with accountability. But we have to do something, folks. Jamaica cannot continue the way it is. If the opposition took over tomorrow, I am certain there would be no funds for them to adequately run a budget. They would have to turn around and start recovering funds, that $3 trillion that supposedly is unaccounted for or missing. And I don't know how they're going to do that if our MOCAs and our CTOC and the rest of them are all corrupted.
Can I respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir. All right.
So, how I read what Herb is saying, I don't mean to be rude, but it's like he's saying, if we pray harder, eventually we'll end up nearer to God.
I didn't say that.
Because here is the facts. I look at, while you were talking, I brought up the what's his name again? The Transparency International. Yeah, I brought up the ranking and look at it. Singapore is number 3 in the world out of 180 countries.
Okay.
So its score is 84 compared to Finland, who is 2, which is 88, and Denmark, which is 1 with 90. Jamaica is, as you rightly pointed out, at the bottom in the English-speaking Caribbean. And that's no joke, in the sense that Jamaica has been at the level where we are today for the last 23 years. Jamaica has been at that level, in the middle level, at the bottom of the middle level, for the last 23 years, from under both the PNP and the JLP. What happened to whistleblowers in Jamaica is that they are dead people. I mean, they might be lucky to get fired. So whistleblowers, even though there is a law for whistleblowers, are there real whistleblowers? That whistleblower come out, and the fate of whistleblowers in the United States is also suspect. They have been fired, they have been threatened, and in many cases their homes and family are under duress. If they dare to complain, most of them have gone home quietly under the current government, which is known to be hostile to whistleblowers, especially if you blow the whistle against them. So what you are saying is, doctor, heal thyself. You have a disease, you can't get no doctor to heal yourself. Whereas what I am talking about is fundamental. I'm not saying there's no room to maneuver in what Herb is saying, but my own opinion is Jamaica needs to reassess. The people need to reassess, especially those who are suffering at the bottom for the last 63 years. We're going to have independence coming up in a month, and it's going to be no different than the last 63 years. No different. Black man at the bottom because him poor, brown man in the middle because him get something, and white man at the top because they run everything.
Yeah, but you know what? I hear the comparison with Singapore, but what John and others, and I would include Herb in it also, what John and Herb and others fail to recognize is that Singapore was a cohesive country and society. We never experienced that in Jamaica. In Jamaica, it's a divide and rule in our resistant culture. So we never have a cohesive sort of society like Singapore. We never experienced that. Okay? And we have the brown man and the white man, family structure remain intact. While ordinary Jamaican, down at the bottom, the family structure get destroyed. And usually it get destroyed by police officers, the criminal justice system, whether them imprison people or them kill them off or whatever. That is what Jamaica. So the comparison, I sort of caution us when it's about Singapore and Jamaica. You know, the cohesiveness of the society make a big difference. You know, Jamaica never have that. It's one of conflict from Jump Street, from slavery up to today. It's a series of conflict we are go through. You know,
Mikey, that's a very important point that you raised about the cohesion of the society. Because I think that is one of the dominant things that is affecting our society today. Some people might say, but we don't have no white people ruling over us now. But that legacy of slavery and of colonialism, it built a certain structure to keep itself alive under slavery and under colonialism. And even after we get independence, even after we've been able to elect black people into certain positions
Divide and
in
rule.
our society, what has been happening is that we're electing black people into the same structure of society, the same political structure,
Same
and the same economic structure that slavery and colonialism handed down to us. And these people that we elect, not they don't want to change that system. Because if you look at the system that we have, not everybody is affected by the system in the same way. While you have a whole heap of poor people down at the bottom, you have that's not benefiting at all, and they have no power to recall nobody. They have no power to form any policy. At the top, you have people who are benefiting economically from the poverty, from the lack of participation of people like us in the political structure. You have people benefiting and becoming rich and powerful in poor Jamaica. Singapore did not have that division in the society. Singapore did not suffer from the racism within that we suffered from. So we carry in a system that was set up as a result of racism, and the people who are in power are maintaining that system of discrimination and that system of benefits for only a few. So the majority of the population of Jamaica, when we look from independence till now, they have been struggling, but there is a certain category of people in the country who are above the suffering, right? They have the handle, as people would say, and some others have the blade. So it's not like the system is affecting everybody in the same way. And it is directly as a result of the colonial system and the slave system that we had. And that is why constitutional reform, real constitutional reform, is so important, because the constitutional reform that we thinking about is a constitutional reform that going to change the structure of power that exists in the country for some people, right? And make it more democratic, more participatory, make more people have a voice in how the country run and how the benefits of the country is distributed. So that's my comment so far.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, and I think the only question that we have to look at is this manifesto. We need something because the divide and rule game that they play on the Jamaican people, them are we fighting at each other throat. We have to find a way to break that down. You know, we've been fighting among ourselves too long now. As a people, and probably John was suggesting probably we need a manifesto that bring the people together. I don't know,
We, we, we've,
but
yeah, we need a manifesto.
but
But
we're fighting among ourselves too long now, brethren. We need something that's going to bring us together. If it's a
but
manifesto, I'm not
the,
sure.
the
I don't.
thing the thing that going to bring us together, first of all, is the constitutional reforms and the political reforms that ensure that people have more say in the runnings of the country. Like communities, it have to start at the parish council level to democratize and make it more participatory from the parish council levels where people have more say in terms of how the parish council money is spent,
You
right?
think,
They
you
can
think, you think any one of these politicians going to give up that?
they won't give it up just like that because they are benefiting. It is because the people don't have much say and don't and can't see what they are doing. That is why we're calling for more transparency and more accountability. Because without the transparency, without the people knowing and participating in the process of governing the country, everything will remain the same because these parliamentarians, these councillors, these whoever they are who are leading, they're not going to voluntarily give up the privilege that they have over money and over resources of the country when they can slip some of it in the pocket because you don't know. They won't do that voluntarily, right? So we can depend on them to do it. The people have to demand that they have a say in how everything run from the local level right up to the cabinet level
Mm.
because it is because the people are unable to control these politicians, unable to control or have a say over how the government ministries or how the parish councils are run, why so many people are getting away with so much.
Mm. John, the manifesto. What role you see for a manifesto, and how we go about constructing or mobilizing the people around a manifesto? How we get the idea how to the Jamaican people?
Well, we talk about this and we abandon it for a while. I mean, maybe about 8 or maybe a year now. We don't talk about it again because we have to be consistent. I feel then and I feel now that we should have a voice out there which we can call a manifesto that is different from what the PNP and the JLP are offering the people. For it to become a reality, it needs organization, yes, but the voice, a grassroots voice, have to be there, out there, to offer a different answer to the things that Lass is talking about. There's no voice that going to carry that. We can talk it on this show, but we can also talk it in a document which speaks to the broader questions of that the people face. And I certainly believe that is something we should put out. Um, You know, in terms of how we develop it, I don't, you know, we don't necessarily have the answer to everything, but we have enough answer to make us put something together that can be distributed online and in hard numbers in the communities and so on, to parents, to workers, to the ordinary working people, to Rasta, etc. Saying this is a view we have. Call it whatever. Waterhouse Manifesto or the People's Manifesto from Waterhouse Community. You know, we don't have to fight over the name at this stage, but that is something that I feel we should put forward and not sit down and watch the PNP win and the people go through a process, because I think eventually that's what's going to happen. What's going to happen? People going to switch to the PNP. Life is going to make people learn that the difference is not substantial. The difference is going to be relatively the same as what they were experiencing under the Labour Party. But we should be out there offering a different solution.
See, you know, we can come up with alternative arguments. And I agree, John. And that alternative arguments would be that manifesto we talk about. But realistically, what needs to happen is how do we get our institutions to start working again? And not just working against the small man, but working against everybody who tried to desecrate the laws of the country, working against the corruptors, the people who are causing the corruption, right? If you're gonna cut off corruption, maybe you ought to make a law against people corrupting people, even if those people are located in Canada, the US, or the UK. If you can enforce that law using Interpol or any other means, the World Court or what have you, then all of a sudden you're changing the attitude of the people in the island.
Herb,
Yeah.
what you're saying seems to me like more the details in a manifesto. John is calling for a manifesto.
And I'm saying that's not gonna work, Mike.
What you're saying not gonna work?
Yes, because if they can't respect the local laws as it is right now, what who is going to adapt a manifesto that's going to restrict them more
John,
and force them to follow a certain line, right?
you want to respond to what Herb is saying, John?
Yeah, I mean, he has a point in that the reality is having a document in itself is not the end result. What we are saying is we are trying to awaken a movement. We are trying to create a movement. We are trying to develop a cohesive force, which we call working people, which we call Black people, which we call grassroots people, to embrace what we are saying. Now, the truth is, in and of itself, people not going to just embrace what you say. They have to experience. They have to drive the road, drop down in a pothole, tire bus, and they go in the next vehicle. and them drive a next distance, drop down in a pothole again, tire bus. Them say, Ross, the 2 vehicle broke down. Make we look on something else. That is not an overnight thing. But my attitude is I want to blow the bugle from now. I want to plant the seed from now. Because one day in the not too distant future, people going to see what we are saying. And that is when it become a force. It's like in South Africa, you use the example. It's not the newspaper make the people embrace a kind of government in South Africa that Mandela defend. Is a national movement in support of the ANC. Them having them worries now, but the truth is that we are behind them. We don't have no ANC. We want to develop an ANC. And that is the first step, in my opinion, is to blow the bugle. But it's not an overnight thing. The road is not for the swift, but for those who can endure it to the end. And this is a time when we look at that list of corruption, the first thing that strikes me, a woman on here, Miss Elaine, said, rotted. So much corruption in Jamaica. Every 3 year, every 2 year, corruption, them scandal. We never remember when we look. Some of them probably don't call out. But it's clear it's not a party thing. It's a systemic thing to which both party is guilty. Nobody go prison. We don't hear about no prison. Well, we hear some case where a man resign. I mean, them days done. Nobody now resign no more. It's not like England.
But the thing is, resigning don't solve the problem.
Exactly. That's true too. That's true too.
The man resign to save face of the party.
Or the next man. And that one man get the licks for another man.
You put him, the man was up front, so you put him at the back so that the attention come off of him, and you keep the same structure in place, or the same lack of structure in place, and then next year and next man come and do the same thing, and you probably make him resign. So
good point.
But last, look at the lady, the lawyer in Parliament. They knew before she was elected that she had taken people's titles when she was in St. James, and she had sold the property without permission and kept the money.
That's Dalrymple?
Dalrymple, there you go. And so if it came down to where the Integrity Commission finally caught up with her on a simple thing like a parliamentary benefit of tax exemption on a car, they caught up with her and they could have prosecuted her to the full extent of the law. They let her off the hook. Now the woman is back. So she comes back and she wants to enjoy the benefits of Parliament once again. I mean, you got to do something a little bit more heavy-handed to show that she cannot escape justice.
And the way we do that, Herb, is not just to rely on the up top systems, right? The way we do that is to ensure that the grassroots people who she represent, right,
Yeah.
have some say over the power where she have and how far up the ladder she can go. And right now, the people who she represent have no say whether she's a good representative or she's not a good representative. They can't do anything about that. So what we're saying is make the system more accountable by giving the people them more power over the elected representatives and what them doing, like at the grassroots level. Let them present a budget that the people can vet and see how the money is going to be spent,
But
and there's some form of monitoring from the people to ensure that the money is spent in the way that was agreed.
here's the problem we face now. Here's the problem. The people are not mobilized. They're not mobilized. In some respect, yes, they're making noise and what have you, but they are not mobilized. And this is where I think John is onto something when he talk about the manifesto. The manifesto can become that organizing tool, mobilizing tool.
But
You know, a manifesto have to serve that purpose. It can't be something where it just be a talking point.
it's not just that the people not mobilized now, Mikey, because when it comes to election, these people are going to be mobilized. But it's towards what end? They are being mobilized along partisan line. And
Yeah, you're correct.
oftentimes the
You're correct.
partisan line is not the line of the country.
You're correct. You're correct. So,
You
John,
understand? Because it's
yeah,
about promoting your political party, not promoting what is good or beneficial to the country or even sometimes to the people in the community. Because these people who are mobilized, they're not mobilized to change anything in the constitution or the system
and the
or the
manifesto,
way that the country is governed.
and the
And that
manifesto.
is what we would like to see happen.
Well,
Where
that is the gap that the manifesto will have to fill. You know, so how we implement it now is my concern. You know,
No.
we do a draft and send it to some key people to sign off on it in Kingston or what have you. How we go about implementing this? Because I agree.
that,
Well, I think we need to send John down to Jamaica to promote the manifesto. You have to promote it.
I'm gonna
You
come
have,
back. I'm
but
gonna
you have
come
to
back,
promote
Herb. I'm
it.
gonna come back, Herb.
Well, look, we've got key people in the audience. We got Lachlan, we got Elaine Turner, we got Don, we got all of these people that I am certain would be a part of your council in Jamaica. Listen, you have to get a council in Jamaica, maybe between the what you call it, JCC, the Jamaica Council of Churches. You have to get a council going, maybe amongst the police officers
A council for what? For what purpose?
to promote your manifesto.
Ah,
Because they're the ones that are in the communities. They're the ones that speak to people. They're the ones who have not enforced or caused to be enforced the standards that a community wants. I,
Well,
re- I
let me hear from John since he's suggesting the manifesto. John, you can speak to those questions. A
Yeah,
council.
eventually, yeah. But the core of it, Herb, is the working people. The core of
Yeah.
it is not the church, is not the teachers
I didn't say
necessarily.
that. I didn't
Right.
say
The
that.
core of it is the working people. So I think the first step is a draft. It's not going to
well, I
Jamaica
think,
because we don't
John,
have a draft yet. We
John,
have some ideas. And one of the ways we can promote the manifesto on this program is what we've been doing. We've
Yeah.
been talking about areas that we have sharp more wit, like on the corruption thing. We have certain things that we have spoken about. And in that area, we are sharper now than we were 6 months ago. We have spoken about violence against women, or equality for women. There are topics that we have been successful at hearing on the show, and which can be embraced in a document. I have taken notes. I don't, I never keep the notes together because we weren't staying on course. But there are some areas we don't have no discussion on to speak of, like the economy, like the I have to go back and look at the areas, and maybe we can when we identify areas that we need more feedback on, we can the next step is to do a draft.
John, I think there's some misunderstanding though. I don't know if Herb is misunderstanding the whole intention of the manifesto. The manifesto is not to tell the government or change the mind of the government or any particular political party. The manifesto is basically our talking point. It is what we have been suggesting as needed for change in certain aspects of the country. It's just that we're putting it on paper so that at least we have a developed talking point around certain issues. It's not really to present to like a political party for them to create any changes, to bring awareness to ordinary people as to some of the issues that and the suggestions around those issues.
Let's think about this, because John said it. It's for working people to adopt whatever the principles we put out in the manifesto. But working people attend church. Working people work with law enforcement. Working people work within government, right? So you still have to have a method for them to absorb what it is we're saying. And for them at the time of elections to apply whatever standard we are asking them to apply to each of their individuals, whether local or national elections, right? You have to start there, and you have to get those people indoctrinated so that they can look at holding people to a higher standard. Right now, nobody in Jamaica, in the communities, is holding anybody I know of to any higher standard. They talk about them, they comment on it, but I don't hear a bishop, I don't hear the Archbishop of Kingston, I don't hear nobody saying anything about the standards that.
But that's what we're saying, Herb. What is happening is that is why we are here every Sunday, because a lot of the things that we are saying, which we believe should be on the minds of the people, are not on the minds of the people. A lot of the things that we are concerned about as concerned Jamaicans, and we think that it will bring benefit to the country, a lot of people at home in Jamaica who are undergoing and feeling the pressures of some of the things that we're talking about don't believe it. But what we believe is that if we can put these things out there, right, and continue to talk about them, at least more and more people will, catch on. Probably one person at a time, one person a week, even two persons a month, but more and more people will catch on.
Well, John, when you're going to start working on this it has to be a Kingston manifesto,
Well, it's not a Kingston manifesto as such.
No, that's the name. I'm just giving it as Kingston Manifesto. That's the name. Simon Bolivar did Add some letters from Kingston. Simon Bolivar.
Boulevard.
Yeah.
But see, John, one of the things I agree with what Mike is alluding to, it used to be Kingston and St. Andrew. Set the example for the rest of the country. I've never heard of anybody from a country part coming up with an outstanding example of governance. Who is the best governed parish in Jamaica? Anybody know?
Mandeville.
Used to be.
It used to be. See, nobody knows today because it's gone well in a handbasket.
So what the point you're making?
The point I'm making is we have to get back to as a diaspora to identify good governance in Jamaica and rewarding those people, whether it's a plaque or whatever it is, to promote our manifesto. John, you agree?
Not quite. I am not sure about, we're getting into what I call futuristic detail.
Yes.
I think our first job is to sign off on a draft document, and then we consider how we're going to execute it, how we're going to implement it.
But John, can I say something?
A while back? Have we done that a while back? Because
no, I think it's only a few things, only a few areas it's missing. I mean, I stopped making notes because it wasn't something that we were talking about consistently. But I can draw, I will look for the papers, the notes that I have, and see and identify the areas that are still missing. I remember for sure that the economic development.
Can I suggest something, John?
Yeah.
I think, we need to stop talking about the manifesto on here and do a manifesto. And if we have a developed document, we present it. We have spent months, weeks and months talking about this thing, and it's not the administration of this document is not the important thing. Is either we have it or we don't have it. And until we have it, I don't even think we should even come and talk about it again.
And I'm in agreement with Lass. It's time now we see something, a draft of something that we can work with and add or subtract.
Because we have been having these discussions on here for a long time, so we know some of the proposals that we have been putting forward and which we believe in, and we can put those in something. It don't have to be something we come discuss here over and over and over and come back again and give it a break and come back. It don't make sense.
So on that note, John, can you have how soon or when can you have a draft ready for us to review? Circulate. When can you circulate that to us? But I don't know how you're going to do because there's another document you're working on.
Correct. I'm glad you remember that. So make we look on the 26th. Make we look on the 26th of July.
Okay, July 26th is a revolutionary day, That's a day.
Fidel, that's a good day. That's a good day.
Moncada.
Yeah.
The July 26th movement. Yeah. So the 26th. We should have something circulate. Outline.
Yeah.
And a question I want. I think it would be also useful if we could get feedback from the listeners, Elaine and all of these individuals, to hear their voice, what they think, and what are some of the things.
Mikey, I think that will be more if we have something and
Okay.
we put it out there and request feedback. Without we have anything, it is
Okay.
Best to get something. I agree with Lass on that.
All right. All right. All right.
Start with something.
Okay.
All right.
So, what we're gonna do now?
We have something we haven't discussed yet, Mike.
Go ahead.
And it is, and there's a reminder out there. What the heck is this?
About the soldier man.
No. The life sentences without hope, indefinite sentencing for people who are simply mentally impaired, right? And remember, they got rid of all the so-called mad people out of Bellevue, put them on the street, and then it was like we were following in the footsteps of the U.S. because it was President Reagan who first in 1996 put all the mad people out of U.S. Um, government-run institutions, put them on the street, and Jamaica followed suit, right? So what we've come up,
In what respect? In what respect Jamaica father?
you spoke about it earlier. The man who spent over 50 years in prison was never convicted of any crime, right? Was never a threat to society, but they just held on to him for over 50 years. Another one was over 40, right? Um, and then you have a lot, it was like about 150 of them in Jamaican prisons. I wrote about this from the at the Caribbean level because I'd gone down to St. Lucia, and then I spoke to one of the Caribbean secretariats at CARICOM, and he says the problems across the entire Caribbean. People who are inconvenient to government, that means they're out on the roads, right? They just hang out. They have no social impact to improve the countries, but they detract from the aesthetics, right? They're soreized, in other words, and they choose to keep them in prison. So now this guy is going to be awarded or rewarded, thanks to Isaac Buchanan, 120 million Jamaican, right? That to me um, is a huge payoff that the government now should be turning around and the other 100 plus people who were in jail, they should have the same case to be made that Isaac made on behalf of this guy, right? It is a glaring example of you getting lost in a system. But if they were doing what we do in the military is have a roll call, and that roll call should say the date you appeared in court, the result of that appearance, and how they are going to be rehabilitated moving forward. And the key word here is rehabilitation. Because if you have people in jail without rehabilitation, then there's no hope. They technically are dead to society, right? So this has got to change. It's unconstitutional, and it's a human rights breach. The Privy Council and regional courts throughout the Caribbean uh, have said indefinite sentences without review is inhumane and degrading. And Jamaica is party to international conventions. right, that prohibit cruel, inhuman, or degrading punishment. The OAS, right, as well as the Commonwealth, they prohibit this stuff. Now, Indicom should be the one, another public defender's office down in Jamaica, should be reviewing these roll calls in prison. People who are there and they have not been convicted. And they should address it and force the government to come up with some category that will put these folks either on a mental health improvement project or something to get them out of the category of just put them in a dungeon. And now, I know the cost to the state could be millions in health, food, and security. And families, the loved ones are just simply forgotten. And there's a lot of hopelessness around it because government is doing it, so it must be right. No, we need to examine these things, take a hard look at recovering these people back to society. You know, I mentioned a lot of people. The fight that Jamaicans used to have, that spirit of nationalism, it's even reflected in our sports teams. The football team, look at them. They beat Guatemala in the World Cup elimination, and they go lose to Guatemala the next week in the
No,
gold.
not Panama.
Guatemala was the first one, and then Panama. Now it's like they just fall apart. They just give up. I don't know where our people get these attitudes from.
What attitude? What, giving up?
Giving up, yes.
But they didn't give up.
And look, you cannot, when Jamaica play Panama, it's usually a one goal affair.
Yeah, because the ball round, you have to remember, so the ball is round, so anybody can score and win. And it's not something where Panama or what have you. It's just that's the ball is round, herb, and you have to get used to that. Jamaica can't win everything, Can't win everything. We all get beaten sometime, man. The challenge is getting back up on our feet. But we're not gonna win everything, man. And listen, man, the ball around, my brother.
I know it's wrong, Mikey, but
Yeah.
look at it this way.
Which way?
You have all these professionals
So what?
you bring from England, you bring them from the US, you bring
Yeah,
them from Holland.
yeah.
You bring them in and you say, okay, we're gonna limit the team to 7 local players.
So what your problem with that?
No, but if you have all these professionals and you limit the local players, the talent, local talent, you should be winning because you're bringing in a professional coach, paying him at least $2 million a year, and expect that he's gonna win.
Brother man, again, the ball is round.
That
The
don't make
ball round. Anybody can score. You understand me? We,
right.
we,
Are you
we
agree? You agreeing with this, last?
what?
Well, I
Last,
don't know which side we come down and
last,
I listening keenly, but
last. The
I
ball round.
don't know.
Oh, Lord.
Last. You see when you throw
I know the ball around, but
All right. We
last,
need some support in the chat. Come on.
yeah,
last,
man.
Talent and
last.
abilities.
When you throw the ball upon the field, you understand me? Anybody can score. You understand me?
Yeah,
Round. No,
but
but
we need more will behind the ball still.
the ball around the brethren. Some day them going to get it right. Another day them just going to just mess it up.
Yeah, but when it come
Come what?
in succession
In brethren.
over and over, you have expectations, and
There
yeah,
you go.
you know,
Expectations.
it
So, Mike, how can you be satisfied with losing?
because the coach is constructing a team that comprise overseas player and domestic players, and it's going to take some time for it to come together. We have to give the coach some space for operating. The coach just how long now he's with the team? Less than 6 months. Yeah, you might forget because Mark, the Jamaican players play a certain way. The professional overseas professional, they are used to a certain standard and what have you. It's gonna take some time before we get it together, Bridget.
Furthermore,
I see this guy Pedro German. Herb never participated in playing no sport. Herb was the sweeper back for Colonialism, which later became Constant Spring, and we went into Major League.
Yeah, we used to beat Uno up.
No, hell
What
no.
else? You and Uno and Granny Marshall and all them players.
That's right.
We used to beat up Golden Aces at Jews
I
land.
mean,
So we don't send the ball around, man.
the fact of the matter is, we set a record of 7 straight wins when we move into first division. 7 straight, and I don't think anybody break that till today. So, has Waterhouse ever won 7 straight games?
We win the championship.
No, man. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
man.
a winning record.
I'm saying we win the championship.
Okay. Well, not this year,
Premier
not
League,
last year.
not
When
but
last time you win the championship?
I have to check it out and get back to you on that.
Yeah.
But we always up in the top 5.
Yeah.
We're always up in that.
I think the only point I'll make on this is, I agree with Mikey. The ball round, you can't win every time, but I think I'm scarred by the performance of Jamaica in the French Olympics. So because I sense a depressed team, a team that wasn't
French Olympics.
French Olympics.
Yeah, the Olympic Games was in France just the other day.
Yeah.
I talk about women's
And
team.
Jamaica, both the men and the women, the whole team never do as well as I figure that they should. And I like somebody who posted on Facebook, asked questions about the team, and I sense that there was a depressed team, meaning the people weren't motivated for some reason, whether it's the coaching or the money or the support from Jamaica. Something was going on.
Look, John, the very person we talked about the other day, Dennis Chung, has been the financial head of the GFF committee, and they have been having financial problems forever. So now that he's giving it up, maybe they can do an audit and see what happened.
But this is not the football, This was the Olympics.
They still come on the GFF.
No,
the Olympic.
No,
Olympic.
Oh Lord,
no, man.
Come on, the Olympic, the Jamaica Olympic Association.
Yeah, that's where commander.
The football team. The football, all forms of football come on the JFF.
Yeah, but
in conjunction with whether it's the Olympic Association or the Major League JPL, right? It all comes under JFF. No, your Babsi said she gave $4 million to JFF, to Dennis Chung, so that him can support the men and women.
That's a Women World Cup. That is soccer. What we're talking about is track and field.
Well, when did you start talking about track and field? We're talking about soccer.
No, I'm saying to you, Dennis, JFF falls under
soccer.
Track and field that John is talking about, the Olympic, that fall under Jamaica Amateur Athletic Association, JAAA.
Okay. Michael,
it's different thing.
You know that
Olympics is not track and field alone. Olympics involve soccer as well.
Oh, Jesus. My point,
You don't know that?
yeah, we know that. But that's the point I'm making is I don't know if the example you just talk about CONCACAF is can be, go further than where Mike take it, which is that them can win sometime and lose sometime. Is a new coach, a new everything, including the finance person is new because Chong just leave.
All right. Let's see what happens in the future. We need to go back and revisit that because a lot of them ask for monies from the diaspora. We send a lot of money home for different causes. So if we're going to support the football, one of the programs we need to take a look at is the STAR program to see how successful it has been, because that's where the diaspora, in addition to the PSOJ, has been supported.
Can you find someone to lead that discussion?
Well, I can call the superintendent and bring him on, and then we can talk about that. Just like how we need to get the medical guy on to Dr. Hunter.
You know how to reach him?
I invited.
Is that the one people are referring to here who was fired?
Yes. It just shows you when you are a professional in Jamaica and you are an outstanding professional. This man has identified quacks in the system.
Well, bring him on for next Sunday.
Which I'm trying. I let
That's a good man. I was reading up on him here in the column here.
Yeah.
But you are right. I had to resign from 2 jobs because I was professional. Ethics is through the window.
Yeah. And it goes back to what we've been talking about. Does Jamaica really want professionalism in the workplace, in government, in how we live and operate? Are you want Jim Screechy stuff all the time?
Bring him on next Sunday, bro. Bring him on next Sunday.
Sunday coming.
I will try.
Yeah, Sunday coming.
It took a long time for him to appear on one talk show in Jamaica. And I'm hoping that somebody maybe in our chat knows him and that they can suggest it to him. But I will see if I can reach out to the people who had him on before.
What's his name?
Dr. Hunter. What's it, Hunter?
What Hunter?
Hold on. I know the name. Roger.
So you go and get him then? Is a medical guy?
Look, I'm trying to find out somebody close to him. And I was speaking to somebody who does emergency medicine in Jamaica. And I'm hoping to hear from her if she can come on herself. And, because we need to know more about what's happening in the medical arena from actual medical people themselves. So let's work on that and see if we can make it happen for next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen. I think we have exhausted our time here. The discussion, I believe, was very informative, and we make some progress. The history of the manifesto came back up today, and it's something we should really pursue because it considering the election coming up. I see where a manifesto, if done right, it can effectively inform a discussion, certainly in Kingston, because we have a lot of connection, and folks would be excited to see something like that, In the 70s, you could expect to see position paper, all sort of thing. In the 2,000 new periods, like nobody want to get back into that sort of engagement. But with John's support, by the 26th, we should have something in our hands to review. We agree on that? Take it. So until next Sunday, I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank the listeners, and we'll talk. One love.
Okay.
One love.
One love. Blessings, everybody.
Yes, I.